Razor Radio. That was the spoils of war from the Mighty Pounder. Speaking of Pounder, we got Matt Harvey joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. Very stoked to be here.
Absolutely, dude. So killer new record that just came out. Explain real quick before we get started. This, how have you been during so far in just the quarantine?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I've been really fortunate. Luckily, I live in San Luis Obispo, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with, is a pretty small town, coastal town, about halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. It's been a lot mellower here and a lot closer to something resembling normal than I think it has been in a lot of other places. I work in an electronics factory, making instrument electronics, pickups and harnesses and stuff. And I've been going to work for, the last several months now, just, sitting in my little area soldering stuff. So for me, it feels pretty normal, aside from not going on tour. And, I've stayed well. My aunt, unfortunately got COVID and passed away in the care home that she was in. But other than that, my immediate family here locally has stayed healthy. And I've had some Band-Aids get it and stuff, but I've, knock on wood, managed to stay healthy, and my wife's managed to stay healthy, and the dog is okay. Even though she wanted to stay in the car for some reason to keep an eye on the other dogs in the neighborhood and didn't come in the studio with me tonight. But it's just weird not going anywhere and not seeing everybody. And I'm so used to traveling all the time and seeing my friends all over the world. But like I said, I've been very lucky, so I don't want to complain about that compared to what a lot of people like Andy have been through with the virus. So I count myself very fortunate, but I'm looking forward to it being over.
Totally.
Yeah, the virus sucks. I'll just put that out there. I don't wish it upon anybody, but I'm recovering. I wouldn't be doing this right now if I didn't feel better.
Absolutely.
Which is awesome.
And going, I just gotta ask you, Matt, is this the first time for you, maybe in 20 years, where it's like you're kind of working at a day job more than touring?
I've been in my job.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I've been there for I think 5 years now. It doesn't feel that long because usually I'm gone 4 or 5 months a year. But certainly since All Guts No Glory came out 10 years ago, that's kind of wild.
Wow.
This is the first,
So you have one of those understandable bosses.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's why I don't think I don't want to let this job go because my bosses are great, and and I'm just stuck there.
Yeah,
as soon as I found a job that worked, I just stuck there. But yeah, it is the first time in 10 years that I haven't been anywhere. It's very much a shock to the system, man. It doesn't feel natural. My mom had to move from South Carolina to Phoenix, and she's almost 70. She's 69. Nice. And anyway, so I had to drive her and her little dogs across country, and that was like really fun. I was like, oh look, I'm going somewhere, even though we're not even barely getting out of the car, except to stay at a Motel 6 or whatever. But that was a really fun 3.5 days, just because I actually went somewhere.
Totally. Well, when we last spoke, you had just done the vocals for Breaking the World, and it's finally here.
Right.
Now a major step up from your previous release are the vocals, and particularly not the tone of your vocals.
Yes.
But I'm talking in terms of whoever mixed it put your vocals up a little bit more,
right.
So for my taste, because with a band such as this, which is a kind of a more traditional heavy metal
Exactly.
style, you want the vocals to soar. And I really feel like this one has really benefited from just putting your vocals up more in the mix.
Well,
Was this a conscious decision for you guys on this record?
it was on both records, honestly, because I'm clearly not Rob Halford or Michael Kiske or Jeff Tate or any of those guys. And I think I was very self-conscious on the first record. And I purposely was like, no, just turn the vocals down a little bit more. And our bass player, Alejandro, who engineers our records and engineered the last Exhumed, he's like, really? I mean, dude, you really shouldn't turn the vocals down this low. And I was like, no, turn them down. And this time, I just kind of realized that was, just me being self-conscious. And, there's plenty of bands that, do traditional metal that I really like their vocals, even though they're maybe not, Ronnie James Dio. Like, I love like Sirthungo or Middle Road and stuff like that, where you don't hear the vocal and think like, this guy could be singing opera. You're like, no, this is just like a rough and ready heavy metal guy. And that's that's my range. So, that's what we're doing. But thank you. I think we all think the record's a step up, all the way around.
In my experience dealing with musicians for a long time, all of you guys are all self-critical. All of you.
Yeah. I mean, I always say like, you should be your own worst critic, because if you're not, somebody else will be, and they probably won't be, that they probably don't like you as much as you do. So like, it's way better to hear it honestly from yourself. And that's the drive to always try and improve or whatever,
Totally. My next question becomes with in the drumming department. Now, a few drummers have played on this specific record, and I'm just kind of, give me the reason for it.
Well, the record was supposed to be an EP, and some of the songs we recorded the music and stuff initially at the same time as Uncivilized, like I think Hard City, Spoils of War, and another one that's escaping me right now. But those songs have been around for quite a while. We just had a lot of material for the first album, and we just we had Gus from Gruesome, who's a fantastic session drummer, and we were like, well, you're recording this stuff already, let's record some more, and we'll see what we're going to do with it. And so we pitched it to Shadow Kingdom as an EP. And as labels do, they said, well, full lengths they do better. They sell more, they get more press, and, the material is strong enough. So we just went back and then recorded some more songs, and Gus played on some of those. And then, we had recorded a couple with our buddy Adam from Cartilage, from the Bay Area, and then we needed more songs to round out to round it up to an LP, and so Gus came in and did a couple more as well. So it's a record that was recorded sort of in stages, and had a lot of different performances from a lot of different times, and it's just sort of a Frankenstein monster. But I think it sounds interesting because of that, and it doesn't sound uncohesive. It's not like it's wildly different from track to track or whatever.
Oh, that's what I was going to get to was whoever mixed this did a great job with it. It sounds like a complete it sounds like a cohesive, complete record. It doesn't sound like a bunch of songs from 50 different sessions.
Well,
right.
Well, that's one of my things that makes a record good. It's with Tanner's record last year, and that's, if I can put a record on and I want to listen to the whole thing, it's a great record. And the New Pounder is definitely one of those. I put it on, the whole thing play through.
Oh, absolutely. Now, and it's a kind of a shorter record, and especially in your career, Matt, you tend to release a little bit longer pieces of music. But it works so well with this specific one.
That again, we thought the record was going to be just a 20-minute thing, and we do have more material, but the label was like, you're pretty close to just having a full-length album. Like, it's like, if you can break 30 minutes, you're good. And we're like, well, we don't want it to just be 31 minutes and like 6 songs, so let's just make it 35 and do 7, because our songs tend to run pretty long. Like, they all get to be like around 5 minutes or whatever, because some of my favorite stuff in this genre and the stuff that I think we do really well is the instrumental breaks and the long bridges. I always loved that Maiden would have like just a full like 2 minutes in the middle of the song where it's like, hey, there's like 4 different solos and 7 different key changes and these parts, and that's kind of the stuff that really gets me up in the morning. So we try to do a lot of that. So the songs run long, and we didn't want it to be too long. We wanted to make sure that every song sort of scratches a different itch, and every song sort of serves a different purpose. And we don't have like, oh, and here's like 3 or 4 sort of fast songs, or 3 or 4 kind of like plodding, anthemic songs. We wanted to do like, the first song's kind of like that new wave of British heavy metal thing, and the second one's more epic, and so on and so forth. So each song kind of has its own vibe and does its own thing. So
absolutely. Andy, let's get into some of this, man. What do you say?
I was going to say that just now. This is a Hard Road to Home from Pounder right now on
Razor Radio.
All
right. 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back. That was a little brand new Cannibal Corpse right there with Inhumane Harvest on Razor Radio.
Absolutely. Now Andy keeps cutting off a little bit. So now Matt, discuss the concept to just the album cover. I'd like to know what your guys' thinking was. And I also know that there are other album covers that kind of look similar to this one,
right.
But I mean, what were you kind of wanting, including the same eyes in the background from the, uncivilized onto this one. So there's,
I think, well, Pounder has been a concept for many years before it was an actual band. And, I used to just sort of talk about it and half jokingly, like, oh, I'm going to do this, metal band, or we're going to sound like, Accept and Tigers of Pantang, and it's going to be called Pounder, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, Breaking the World is such like an awesome title. And even back then, in fact, I have a sketch that a buddy of mine did for me years ago. As soon as I said Breaking the World, I knew what the cover looked like. I was like, yeah, it's got 2 hands like crushing the earth, these evil eyes watching in the background. I'm like, what's more metal than that? And we used Mark Schoenbach again, who did the first album cover. He also did the last Exhumed record cover. He's a fantastic artist, really nice guy. And, we sent it to the label, and we're like, all right, cool, we're good. And then as soon as it got released, someone was like, oh, hey, have you seen this like Blitzen World in Chains cover that has, a shot sort of the same range of the globe, and there's these 2 like, leather clad hands like chaining up the world. And I was like, fuck. And it's just one of those things that we didn't know about the record. And I think what surprised me was that the label didn't know about the record. You know what I mean? Because I would have thought that they, might be more keyed into that than we were. But at the end of the day, I love the album cover that we have. And
oh yeah,
it's metal. Like, it's like there's only so many things that are like total metal, so there's always overlap. How many album covers are there with the devil or demons or chicks with tits or whatever?
Well, but to be fair though, that Blitzen,
we all think alike.
Yeah, and to be fair though, that Blitzen album came out last year. It wasn't like
right.
It was released 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, something slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. And the way that I looked at it is like, I like the cover that they did. I thought it looked good, and I thought the record was pretty good. And I was like, well, for better or for worse, at least people are talking about the album. If some people are angry about it, I didn't really get the vibe that anybody was angry about it. I think it was just more like, oh geez, like these idiots. And I was like, oh well. Hi.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
That's definitely just shit happens. Hey. I want to talk real quick about you and Tom Draper and the way you guys are working these guitar solos, because man, you guys gel, especially on this album, together real well.
Thanks. Tom is, Tom does the leads.
Maiden influence coming out, you guys?
For sure. I mean, I'm a big twin guitar fan, really, just in general. You know, whether it's like Thin Lizzy or of course Maiden, Priest, and you know Exodus. You know, I just guitar harmony is just that's my shit. And so we kind of write at least
me too.
like one big harmony, right? We kind of write at least like one big guitar harmony, I think, per song. And it's just one of the sort of like showcase moments. It's not like there's a checklist, but at the same time, if there was, that would be on there. Like, where's the big harmony, man? Come on. Like, this is where it's going to sound, you know, humongous. And Tom and I
have a solo in harmony. That's just me, though.
Well, of course. I mean, I think that is on the checklist. Every song's going to have a solo. But you know, the harmonies are right there. And I guess because I don't play leads in this band, it's sort of more important to me to put more harmonies so I get to do cool stuff other than just, you know, just playing riffs and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely like very much a guitar-based kind of record or band, really.
Well, I was going to say on the track.
Well, yeah, I like it because
Go for it.
Go ahead, Tanner.
I think he's frozen in time there. But there are some, what I was going to say is there are some keyboard elements on this specific record too that I've noticed.
Right.
Now talk to us a little bit about how you incorporate it into your writing style. Did you layer it on top of, say, the guitar riffs, or just work or have the keyboards out just planned first?
Well, it started at the keyboard lick at Never Forever, for example. It started as a guitar lick. And I just, you know, we all thought it would just be something with like a little bit different texture to sort of add. And it's not like all of a sudden there's keyboards everywhere or whatever, but there are some keyboardy moments. And, you know, that's a very, it's an element that you know, it's very much from our influences as well. You know, I mean, Dio had a keyboardist, you know, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is full of keyboards. And that's one of my very favorite Maiden albums. And it's just, you know, something a little bit different to sort of stick out and break up like, hey, look, it's more like, you know, wild guitar work. Like, and, you know, thankfully now with technology, it's like once you write it, you can just put it in MIDI and then assign whatever like keyboard sound you want. And so it's a very flexible kind of thing too. And when we're able to play live again, if we do the songs that have, you know, those little keyboard accents, we'll probably just play them on guitar though, you know.
Well, I mean, coming from a musician myself and then implementing more keyboard elements into our specific sound, dude, it just works so well with like what we're trying to do, extreme music or not extreme music. And I really feel it fits this specific record for you guys.
Yeah, it was weird because I did read a couple of reviews that like specifically mentioned it, and I was like, it's not like there's, you know, fucking keyboards everywhere or something, but there are definitely like some noticeable like keyboard elements. Like, hey, look, here it is. And it's just
accent.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just something to catch your ear and add a different texture to the song. And one of the great things about writing the style of music versus, you know, death metal or extreme metal, whatever you want to call it, is that there's so much more melodic flexibility already. You know, the tonal palette is so much wider, and being able to accent it with different instruments is really fun, because it's something that if Exhumed did it, you know, it would really stick out, and maybe not in the greatest way. You know, if we did it the same way that Pounder did it, it would be kind of weird, you know?
Well, you have more space to work with though in this style of music,
right?
You know, and I think this might be the first time in your specific career, to my knowledge, that you've had such an amount of space to work with, right? Now, when approaching a Pounder song as opposed to, say, an Exhumed song, you know, what are some of the elements that you're kind of looking for? Some of the note changes or key changes in just your writing style?
You know, I kind of, to me, a song is a song. It's got a verse, it's got a chorus, it's got a bridge. And the arrangements are all fairly similar, except like in Gruesome, because Chuck had a very specific way of ordering his songs. And since we're a tribute band, we do it the way Chuck did it. But, you know, I'm a really big believer in just a good old fashioned, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. That's a song. Like, cool. You only really need 3 parts and you got a song. So that part doesn't change. But as far as like approaching the actual riffs and stuff, the main thing that I don't want to hear is just dun, 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 the Iron Maiden chord progression, because I've heard it too much. And every band that plays this style music, we use it because you can't avoid it. But I feel like it's the most. It's just I hear so many bands just lean on it over and over and over and over, and it just gets to the point where it's like, dude, there's other chord progressions out there, man. Come on. And even Maiden didn't use it this much. Like, calm down. So that's, we try to, like, it's a weird line of embracing a lot of cliches about traditional metal, but trying to present them musically in a way that is novel or maybe less obvious. You know what I mean? Like, Savatage didn't do that all the time. So it's like, you know, trying to come up with riffs that are more, a little darker or whatever in that vein. But, you know, it's like you said, it is really liberating going from playing death metal to doing this. I mean, I think of it in terms of like being a painter, and, you know, like your death metal band has a paint box that's this big, and then Powder has a paint box that's like that big, you know? And so it's really liberating to be able to do stuff that's melodic and, you know, even in major keys versus minor keys, because I mean, so many Priest and Maiden songs especially are full of major stuff, you know, like main choruses are super major, and it's really fun to kind of be able to work in a wider I don't know, just have more room to work musically.
Totally. And maybe and lastly, maybe that's kind of why I enjoyed this record so much, as opposed to, say, all the new wave bands that are kind of releasing I hate to be that guy, but the same crap every album. You know, it's the same chord progression. It's the same.
Yeah.
But, you know, I get tired of it. It's not. It's
right.
Like.
I was thinking when he said that, I was thinking of a band that we all love, but Night Demon. Night Demon.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
But Night Demon incorporates it still, where they still have great songs. You
Yes,
know, they're
they
still
do.
catchy. There's
They're awesome. But that chord progression, you hear a lot of the songs, especially on their second record.
See, I thought their second record was a huge step forward in terms from Curse of the Damned. Huge, you know.
Right.
I really
I think
that.
Armand he's such a good guitar player that it really opened some doors for them, you know, that they couldn't have done. I forgot the guy's name, the original guy. He was killer, like real, like solid
Brett?
dude, great Brett. Riffs. But when it came to like solos and sort of the more flashy theatrical side, like he wasn't that guy. And you know, that opened it up a lot. So the other thing too is, I think if I was a singer that could sing like Michael Kiske or these guys, it's less grating to sort of hear that same chord progression, because you're like, wow, listen to this dude sing. Like, there's I don't know if they're Swedish, or there's a Scandinavian AOR band called Heat that released a record last year called Adrenaline that I really like. And I was listening to it the other day.
Yeah,
I heard that chord progression a lot, but I was like, this dude is such a good singer. Like, I wasn't even paying attention to it. Whereas, you know, I like I said, I'm a street metal guy. Like, that's not my thing. So you kind of have to present ideas that are musically more interesting, just, you know, in terms of the instruments, because you don't have, you know, King Diamond or Rob Halford who can basically sing the phone book over any chord progression, and it's exciting, you know.
But how do you make it to where it like, you're not, I don't think in terms of, it's not like being lazy. It's just like, how do you find other kind of elements to incorporate in the new wave of thrash metal that maybe, say, other bands aren't doing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, this is where I honestly think, coming from a background of more extreme music, it really serves me well, because I'm probably used to thinking of tonal combinations that are way more outside the box than just, you know, your da-da-na-na, you know, your normal minor scale stuff. Because you know, in death metal, if you can like make a riff that is like in key and harmonize, everyone's like, whoa, that's so melodic, holy shit. And so I've always been finding these sort of, you know, maybe like theoretically unusual or unorthodox combinations of notes and riffs. And, you know, we also use a lot of I mean, not to get too technical for people that aren't musicians or whatever this may be, boring. But we also use a lot of chords that aren't just power chords, from full on like G chords and D chords to, inverted, minor third chords, major third chords, your augmented fifth chords. That's like a really big thing. And instead of that same dum dum dum, that chord progression, we've tried to lean into like a 1-7 flatted 7 is sort of, that's like where we live, is on like the 7th fret, the 5th fret, and then the 4th fret with a augmented 5th. The
Okay.
Born to Be Wild, down, 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 down. That place is sort of where I've tried to live, because there's too many, the other neighborhood's too crowded.
Absolutely, man.
All right. Now let's get into the title track real quick.
Killer.
This is Breaking the World from Pounder right now on
Razor Radio.
I'll never not smile at that.
All right, that was. That's right.
Sorry.
All right,
It's our trademark, dude.
that was
Right.
Knives Out from Dress the Dead right there on Razor Radio. We're back here with Matt Harvey and Tanner as usual.
Right
You
on.
heard
Nice
that
to
Dress
be
the
here.
Dead yet, Matt?
I haven't actually.
You heard
I heard some of the older stuff, and I was really impressed with the singer. I forget her name, but I was like, this chick is a fucking rock star, man. Like, she's just
Yeah, she can sing. She plays in Witch Mountain too.
right. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen them live. I know, Craig's an acquaintance that I've known for a while, but I haven't, since I live quite a ways from the Bay. I haven't seen them live yet. But I was just like, I saw her picture. I heard her voice. I saw her picture, and I was like, man, like I could just see this chick being like a force of nature. Like, she's pretty incredible. Not to take anything away from Craig's playing. He's a great guitar player, but
Yeah.
she to me is definitely like the star of the show, and which I think is great. But I haven't heard the new one yet, so I look forward to checking it out.
Well, You'll be able to do it this weekend.
Awesome.
I was gonna say, you kind of need to have that star, though, man. I'm
Right.
sure in Pounder you guys will find that person out sooner rather than later, right? No, just busting your balls, dude. But where can people find
Most likely.
the new Pounder? Where can people find this? Because you still are releasing compact discs and vinyls and
Yes.
everything physical media for us record collecting nerds. So
Right.
give us your links, man.
Well, there's the main one, I guess, is Pounder Heavy. Oh, sorry. The main one, I suppose, is our Bandcamp page, which is pounderheavymetal.bandcamp.com. Also, because I play in multiple bands, we have all of our stuff at the Exhumed web store, which is exhumed.bigcartel.com. So if you want to, shop around my various projects, you can go there. And our label Shadow Kingdom, of course, has their own Bandcamp and their own website, and they got tons of great stuff in the distro. They got everything from, Exciter sweatpants to our new record and all kinds of good stuff. So, we encourage folks to check it out. Of course, it's on Apple Music and Spotify and blah, blah, blah. You can get it through all the usual corporate overlords as well, if you're a streaming guy or gal.
Now, here's a question for you. I don't know if you can go into detail, but I'm going to at least ask it anyways.
Okay.
This might be one of your first projects too that you have not released it on like a relapse
Yes.
at all too. So I guess why Shadow Kingdom and why just a record label in general? Are they still viable in your opinion to a band's career, especially starting out?
Well, in terms of not working with Relapse, I mean, Relapse has an aesthetic, and it is a very far-ranging aesthetic, but this is not in that wheelhouse, and so and because I've been working with them for so long, I always be like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Are you interested? And if they're like, no, it's cool, then I'll go and talk to somebody else. But Shadow Kingdom, I feel, we did the first one on Hell's Headbangers, and I feel like Shadow Kingdom is a little bit more focused on purely traditional metal, and their release schedule is not as crowded, so they give you a lot of individual attention and really, when we had a really good experience with the first album too. This isn't to disparage, anybody, but they really they're very responsive. They're really invested in the record, and it's clear that they really believe in the band, which is really important. In terms of the bigger question, in the digital era, do you need a record label? I mean, some people don't. I think it's the thing is, a big part of the entertainment world, not just music, but it's about perception. Like, if you're the greatest guitar player in the world, but you're busking in a train station, people will look at you and be like, this guy can probably play like, 2 Pink Floyd songs and he's homeless. And you can be the greatest guitar player in the world. But a guy that's playing 4 chords, not even very well, that's on a record label that is getting interviews on websites, people will sort of automatically assume like, oh, well, he must be a good guitar player, right? So I think a record label sort of adds a sheen of legitimacy to what you're doing in people's perception. It's a little bit different if you've released several records and you're like, cool, we're going to strike out on our own. We don't need the record label anymore. People are already like, oh, I know that band. Cool. They're becoming independent. And then the other thing about it, of course, a label can provide financial backing, which is very helpful. Although, the cost of making records is continually shrinking, which is good. But the advertising and the publicity, and of course, you're sort of piggybacking on the prestige of the label. If somebody sees Relapse, they know, Mastodon and Neurosis and Dillinger Escape Plan and High on Fire and these legacy bands that have built the label's reputation, and that's not worthless. The main thing for me though is that promoting a record and releasing a record, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of money. And labels are able to do some of those things more effectively than individual bands, because if a label's promoting 5 records and they buy a full page ad in a magazine, well, cool. The cost is sort of split 5 ways, or you know what I mean? Whereas if you're one band, you're like, oh, we're not on a label, we're going to buy a full page ad. That's a lot of money right up front.
Right.
And the other thing is, it's all about how much time do you want to dedicate to sort of running the business of your band, and how good are you at that?
Here's a pretty good reason too for having a label. I mean,
right?
Yeah,
that's a pretty nice ad.
Yeah, and I think that, again, you can be the greatest drummer or whatever in the world, but that doesn't mean that you're a good brand manager, because they're 2 skills that have nothing to do with each other. And that really is fucking time consuming, dude. Like, if I was really a good brand manager, I would be posting something on all of my band's social media every day, blah, 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 blah. And it's tiring, it's time consuming, and it takes away from the work of writing music, Right. And, especially it's like
creativity.
Yeah. I mean, I have a job, I'm married. It's like, I don't have every waking minute to sit on social media or to, be hitting people up like my own publicist. So I find that if you have someone in your band that's super business driven and really good at it, more power to them. It's something that I've gotten better at because of necessity, but it's not something that I care for. It's not something that I find interesting. I don't get up in the morning and think like, what can I do to raise the profile of my project? I'm like, cool. I get up in the morning like, dude, I want to write some sick riffs today. Like that's what gets me pumped. And it's a big shift in the digital era that musicians are now. It's the norm. You're expected to sort of be your own pitch man, your own hype man, your own brand manager, yada, yada, yada. And it's something that has nothing objectively to do with music. And I prefer to have somebody else do as much of it that I trust and have a positive relationship with, obviously. But I prefer to have somebody else do as much of it as possible, because it's just time consuming, man.
Well, no, and you're right. And I was going to say, for being a band like myself that's done 3 records, by ourselves, and now getting signed to No Life Till Metal Records, I've found it's a huge weight off my shoulders to do some of these things.
Right.
And I was always kind of the guy that was like always kind of against labels, but I'm a man that can admit when he's wrong, and I'm definitely wrong. But because you've kind of when you get to like this stage in their career, you hit a wall and you have to have some help to get over it, as I call it, and it's like you said, it's a prestigious thing. Having somebody care about you behind the scenes is just huge for your band.
Right. And I mean, it's something that I guess the longer I've been doing this, the more that I've realized that every successful band, there's somebody that's not in the band that's helping. You know what I mean? Like imagining Iron Maiden without Rod Smallwood, they could have just been another Angel Witch. Like, man, this band is killer. Like, how come they only did 3 records and then broke up? And like Metallica sort of has the best of both worlds in that Lars has always been a very like business savvy, motivated guy from the early demos. Right. He was the guy dubbing 500 copies of No Life Till Leather and giving them to everybody and talking to everybody like, hey, check this out. It's Metallica. Come on. And then moving to Q Prime, it's like they're working with the guys that broke Rush in America. It's like, even though they weren't on the radio or MTV, they had the guys that broke Rush. That was their manager. And it's like, okay, cool. Good band, good songs, right time, right team. And, without that, there's a definite sort of ceiling that you're more than likely going to hit. And obviously I don't know a lot about how it works if you're Lady Gaga or whatever. But within metal, every successful band, even Cannibal Corpse, like Paul has been working on the business side of the band, relentlessly for 30 years now or whatever. And of course, working with Metal Blade, and they've had various managers and stuff, but you need somebody to be that person if you're going to succeed. I mean, I'm a 45-year-old dude with a day job as well. So I'm not talking about, making $1 million and that kind of thing. But if you want this to be viable and continue, like, you have to think about that side as unpleasant and sort of I find it to be just draining, like.
Totally. Well, like I said, so make sure you go pick up.
Well, on that note, that's a good place to leave it off. And okay, I just want to give me rock. Yeah, just need to give me some rock now.
Okay.
I can do that for you, my friend. Thank you guys for having me, man. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt, for joining us.
We really appreciate everything. So
cheers.
You ready, Andy?
And oh no, I'm good. I'm ready.
Razor Radio.
That's the stuff right there.
Yeah.